Welcome to the Sharpe Way show. For those of you who are watching and tuning in, I appreciate you tuning in at this special time, 3 p.m. Eastern, which is not normal, but this is not a normal show. Today, I am very lucky that I have with me someone who is trying to make New York City a better place, someone who is trying to keep both himself and those around him happier and better, someone who's struggling with so many New Yorkers, but trying to make a difference. The man himself from Stand Up New York, Donnie Zoldan. How are you, sir?
Hey, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Of course. No, I'm very happy that you took some time out of your day. You know, you are trying to make a difference here because you, like so many others, you were hit hard by the lockdowns. I mean, back in March, many people, when it first happened, it was, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And we were like, it'll be okay. But it wasn't okay. Can you tell me briefly about that time when it hit you?
Yeah, I mean, it was mid-March, and we had an all-female show.
Okay.
It was all-female comics. It was sponsored by a brand called The F Factor. So I think it's like a diet product for women.
Okay.
So the show was called F That, a comedy show with no balls. So
look at that. I like that.
It was all women comics, all female audience, and that night was like the end of the world. It was mid-March. It was sold out.
Yep.
Going into that day, and we had 50% drop off because people started talking about this virus. So half the people didn't show up. Again, it was like before everyone was still like hugging and shaking hands. Like we didn't know about like social distancing. Of course, people were wearing masks. And then it was that night also during the show where we found out Tom Hanks had COVID.
Oh, right. Sure. Yes.
And that's when like shit is real, right?
Yes.
Tom Hanks has it. So we knew we had a sense something was going down. And a couple of days later, we shut down.
So you shut down. A lot of other comedy clubs also shut down. And when they all shut down, comics are suffering. The clubs are suffering. The people who service you are suffering. Employees are suffering. All these people are suffering.
My wife is suffering because I'm unemployed.
There we go. Yes, absolutely.
Number one.
And she's got to hang out with you at home now more than usually. So even worse, right? So, but yes, I think everyone was feeling the exact same problems and issues and concerns. So as you start moving down, now it's not 2 weeks. Now it's months and it keeps going. You try to find another way around it, right? You try to do tell me about that. What else you try to do?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's crazy that it's almost a year. It's March 1st, and but March, April, May of last spring, I was like everyone else. I was sitting around at home a lot on my couch, and I would come to the club. I live a few blocks away, so just to get away from my family, I came to my club and just spent time here and cleaned things up and got organized and caught up on emails and projects that I've been sitting on for months and months. And then in June, or late May, I just got restless. Like, but 3 months of sitting here doing nothing. I just turned 40. I've been an entrepreneur since I'm 19. So I wanted to do something, for myself, for comics, for New York. I love the city. I've been here since before I started high school. I was 14 years old, and New York City's been great to me. I love the people. I love the nightlife, and I wanted to do something to give back to the city, to give back to comics. I've been in this business for 12 years, and we started doing shows outdoors. And
there we go. Yes.
Produced over 400 outdoor shows in parks, on rooftops, and courtyards, everywhere basically that Cuomo announced in his pop-up show initiative. We've been doing that since June.
So this begins to happen, and this is what I noticed. You noticed too. it seemed unfair, as they almost like they were just targeting you. That's what it felt like, right? Like, why were other people, and you and I talked about this. You talked about, why are other people getting away with this? Tell me about that.
I really don't know. I mean, it's been frustrating in the past few months, especially seeing bowling alleys opening and movie theaters and restaurants increasing to 35% capacity. And
you're still suffering.
Weddings are allowed now in New York. And comedy clubs and music venues have received virtually no guidance as to when we can reopen. So seeing all these businesses open up around us not being communicated to, when we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then we're seeing the governor announce his state-run entertainment programming, which really doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the big celebrities that are performing at his pop-ups, and New Yorkers don't want to see that. I think the consensus is New Yorkers just want things to open up and get back to normal. I know 3 months ago I couldn't really say that, but I think now everyone I speak to thinks it's crazy that we can open up. Yes.
And that's when you and I talked about, what? Why don't we find a lawyer? Why don't we maybe, do a lawsuit? Let's fight back here. And I think we were very lucky that we were able to find literally the anti-shutdown lawyer here in New York City. We were able to find that guy, and I'm gonna bring him on. For those of you who don't know, who are watching, know who he is. His name is James Mermingus. How are you, sir? I'm glad to have you on. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Good afternoon. I'm doing great.
Can I get you to move your camera a little bit to your right? There we go. Now I got you. Perfect.
Oh, that was his good side. Now
I know.
I was hiding my bad side.
I know. Excellent. And can I get you to point your camera down a little bit? Just a little bit down. There we go. Now we're rock and rolling. That's what I want to see. Now we're good. So look, James, when we came to you, this is something that you've dealt with in the past many times. You've dealt with, you've helped out theaters, you've helped out gyms, you've helped out pool, you helped out the Amish. I mean, you have helped out lots of people to deal with this issue. Tell everybody what you were thinking about when you first heard this.
When I first heard about
what we're talking about, the idea of the comedy, venues being punished like this.
It's, when Saturday Night Live is doing live shows every week and they're pretty much filled to capacity, and Stand Up New York is shut down, there's something wrong with that. Especially since most of the guys on Saturday Night Live, I know the original, the season premiere this year had Chris Rock hosting. You have Pete Davidson there. All of those guys have been on Stand Up New York. And I think it just shows that the big guys are getting all the credit and they're allowed to do whatever they want. But the little guys and the small businesses are the ones that are really, really suffering here. And it's a shame, and I will fight it until no end because I believe it's wrong. And I'm with the little guy. I mean, I grew up. I'm a little guy. My parents had small businesses, so I have a particular love for the small business owner, and that's what makes America. And to see an iconic comedy club like that shut down for no reason when Jimmy Fallon's doing live shows. When Saturday Night Live's doing live shows. In addition, you're going to be able to go to weddings up to 150 people, and they're dancing and they're mingling and they're talking. And, and I know that there's some jazz clubs, dinner clubs are open now in New York City. And here's the other kicker. There are restaurants and bars in New York City now that are open that have live music. Music. But here's the kicker. The music is incidental to the meal. So as long as you say that the music is incidental to the meal, you can have live music. How about the comedy is incidental to the meal? And we open up the comedy club, say, oh, we're going there for dinner, and then the comedy is just incidental to the meal. So I just think it's just one stupid directive and rule after the other, and enough's enough. Open up everybody. The infection rates are down now. Vaccines are out. just open up There's no excuse right now, a year in, that people are still shut down. It's just ridiculous when you think about it.
I love what you're saying, and for those of you who don't know, you actually submitted the paperwork today, didn't you?
Yeah, I filed the lawsuit today in the Southern District, and we're ready to go.
I love that. For those of you who want more information on that, head over to legalizecomedy.nyc. It's literally on Donnie's hat right now, legalizecomedy.nyc. See the details of what we're doing and how this is working and why it matters, because I care about this because I want to heal New York City. The same thing Donnie was talking about, right? I get the righteousness and the wrongness of it. I do, 100%. I get it. And I want New Yorkers to be able to get that comedy, that relief that they want, and to have the choice they want, and to stop punishing people. I mean, that I think is a huge piece.
Let me just say one thing.
Please, not last thing. You can say more.
Everybody's been given the opportunity to open up with guidance in order to keep their employees safe and keep their customers safe. Why not comedy venues? Why not theater venues? All right. So if other places are allowed to open with guidance and guidelines from the Department of Health, why can't they do the same thing for comedy venues and other venues across New York City? It's just ridiculous. But the bottom line is they don't want to do it. They're lazy. And the only way to do it is to bring it to them and force them to do it. Just like I did with the billiard halls. We won a decision, and he was forced to come out with guidance to allow billiard halls to open across the state. So we need to do the same thing here. And I think what Donnie's doing right here is very important, because there are still other businesses that are shut down.
Yes.
Not only comedy venues, there's other businesses that are still shut down. And you know what? And he's taking a stand that is admirable, because he's protecting other small business owners. A lot of these comedy venues are owned by small business owners. They're not owned by corporations. So what he's doing is a great thing. So, Donnie, tell me this has got to be a little bit scary for you in a way, right? Making this step. There's risk involved, social, possible risk, right? Maybe other issues.
I have no friends, so that's not going to be a problem. But I like to add one thing. In a way, the governor, is putting more people at risk, because all the clubs are exploiting loopholes.
Yes.
And we do a show on the 1 train every Saturday night. Again, we do shows. Valentine's Day, we did 3 weddings in the venue because Cuomo legalized weddings.
Ah, okay.
And, we did 3 weddings in the club, and we did, of course, toasts given by comics on stage.
Oh, so, there we go.
Instead of these comedy club owners and comedy producers, we're not stopping. We're doing shows. We're doing shows in people's apartments, on rooftops. It's like prohibition. We're doing these underground shows. We're doing it in the subway, and the city knows that, and the state knows that. And instead of forcing us to go underground, they should really work with us and come up with safe guidelines so we can reopen.
Well, I think that's what James is saying. James, am I misunderstanding your lawsuit? Tell us a little bit about what what's the premise here?
Oh, what comedy is, it's a public performance of an artistic work.
Mm-hmm.
Comedy is the arts, and that's protected also by the First Amendment. So we have allegations of violation of the First Amendment in the lawsuit, because when a comic is on stage, they're expressing their ideas, they're expressing their beliefs, and you can't shut down a business based on the content of their speech. So we have a First Amendment argument, mm-hmm. and we also have an equal protection argument, where comedy venues are treated differently than other like businesses. There's no reason now for restaurants and bars to be open with live music, and for Stand Up New York to be shut down. There's no reason now for weddings to be open with live bands and dancing, and Stand Up New York to be shut down. There's no reason for any of that.
Oh, hold on, let's grab somebody's phone real fast.
Now everyone knows James's taste in music.
Yeah, now we know what kind of music you like, James. You just messed that up. That's great.
Yeah, I'm a West Coast guy with the rap.
There we go. I like it.
Yeah. But different, similar venues are being treated differently. It's the same argument with the theaters as well. There's no reason for theaters to be shut down. Now, movie theaters are open in New York City, 25%.
Mm-hmm.
And, so we have the movie theaters. We have Saturday Night Live. Why can Saturday Night Live go live every week? Why? Because they give a lot of money to the government. Is that why? And they're paying people to sit in the audience, and they're calling them employees. How ridiculous is that? I mean, it's the same danger, alleged danger, if somebody's sitting in an audience in Saturday Night Live than somebody sitting in an audience in an off-Broadway theater or in a comedy venue. So
and the police are never going to go into 30 Rock to shut down that show, no. But they're gonna shut down a comedy show.
Yes.
Yeah. They're going to go after the little guy. And then, God forbid, NBC corporate, we're not going to go after them. We'll go after the little guy who's already been out of work for a year, and the employees have been out of work for a year. It's just crazy. And it's something that I really believe in. And, and I'm going to continue fighting until every business and venue is open in New York State. And that's the way I feel.
I love that. So tell me, Donnie, what do you see as happening in the future? If you win the suit, and I hope you do, I hope we win this thing. I hope because I'm on board here, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons why I came on board. I want to make sure that we win this thing. I want to make sure we support the little guy. I want to make sure that we support the small business owner. I think it's the only way that we actually repair New York City in any way, shape, or form. And we also bring back the culture to New York City, right? I mean, you want to bring culture, which includes comedy and other things, but it includes comedy, back to New York City, because that's one of the reasons why people come here. It's the culture, from the crude comedy to the ballet and everything in between. I think we want to make New York City better. Do you see, as this moves forward, and a victory, I hope, a big comeback for comedy in New York? What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think more than ever, people are starved for comedy, and they've been starved for live entertainment for the past year. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we proved that with our outdoor shows. We had tens of thousands of New Yorkers come out in parks because they wanted to see entertainment. We had hundreds of comics perform. So
that's great.
Yeah, we need to open up ASAP. We need to open up venues. We need to open up office buildings, or people are going to continue to flee the city. Yep. Entertainers, actors, comics, they'll leave the city. They'll go back to hometown, which is unfortunate. So I really believe the sooner we open up safely, mm-hmm. the better for everyone. The better for people that moved to New York to their career.
Absolutely. So James, what are the next steps here? What's happening here? What's our next steps?
The next step, now that the lawsuit's filed, we're going to file for a preliminary injunction and on an emergency basis, and get a court date as soon as possible, and have a hearing and argue. We're going to make our arguments, and the state's going to make their arguments. So that's the next step. We filed the civil action today. We'll file the injunction in a day or two, and then we're ready to roll, ready to rumble.
If you had to guess a timeline, can you give us a guess on a timeline from what this is something you've done before, so I know you have an idea. I know you can't guarantee, I get that, but if you had to guess on what do you think a timeline might be, can you give us one? What could happen?
I think we can have the argument in a couple weeks, mm-hmm. and then get a decision a few days later. I would hope so.
Wow, that's amazing. That would be great. I love that.
Well, I'm gonna push it on an expedited basis right now. We're going into 1 year. This is getting ridiculous. This is a point where it's ridiculous. The infection rates are down. People are getting the vaccine. There's been reports that we might have herd immunity in April or early May. So we need to open up our economy, because if we don't open it now, there's going to be no economy to open. And we need to open it now as soon as possible, and get people working again. And let's start making the city back to what it was, the greatest city in the world. I mean, I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I grew up in New York. I still live in New York. I went to college in New York. I went to law school in New York. I'm a New Yorker. I hate to see the way the city is right now. It disturbs me. And if there's anything I could do to make it back to the way it was, I'm going to do it.
I agree what James just said, and
yeah.
I appreciate what you're doing, and of course what you're doing, Larry. But I like to add one thing where I don't think most people most people are aware how dire the situation is. Like, venues have been closed 1 year.
Yep.
This month is 1 year, and venues can apply for the second round of PPP if they're getting money from Save Our Stages. So Save Our Stages, they changed their name to Shuttered Venues Grant. It was passed months ago, 3 or 4 months ago under Trump, and applications are not even open yet for venues to apply across the country. And the law says that if you apply for Save Our Stages, you can't get second round of PPP. So
wow,
no federal money right now for venues, and venues in New York can reopen. So
literally they're trapped in between two, and they can't open both.
Correct.
Wow. We are
and most people, it's unfortunate. Like, the media is not really covering that. There were a few small articles written, about delays with the Shuttered grant, but big media outlets haven't picked it up. The SBA, they're moving like snails to open up applications. I reached out to Schumer's office, Klobuchar's office. She was a co-sponsor of the bill, no response. I reached out to some local politicians, no response. So, I mean, they're considering it like a huge win, their venues grant, but I feel like right after it passed, they just walked away, and they're not doing anything to expedite this process and get applications open. There's thousands and thousands of venues across the country waiting for this website to be open to apply for this grant. And it's a great bill, and there's a lot of money for venues, but we can't access it.
We can't access it and can't open. Terrible. Guys, if you're watching and you think this is important, then do me a favor, like, comment, and share this. Share this every place. Let people know. You heard what Donnie just said. If people aren't hearing about this, if the media isn't picking it up, then you got to help us. Please share this throughout your social media. If you know somebody in the press who you think might care, even a local person, doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be someone, CNN, Fox is fine. We'll take that too. But any place, share that. Let them know this is happening, so that we can actually move this forward to the best of our ability. I can't imagine that more press isn't going to do anything except help it. I mean, unless I'm wrong. James, am I wrong? Is press going to hurt us in some way?
No, more press is always great. Also the governor's got a lot on his plate right now. And, this added press of opening up an forgotten venue, so to speak, I mean, it could only could help right now at this point in time. So any press we could get would be great, and
Excellent.
Because a lot of people don't know about this. Like you said, people out there that think everything's functioning now, and it's not true. Comedy venues have been shut down for a year now. Off-Broadway theaters for a year. I mean, you still have to pay your rent, and you still have expenses and then insurance and all this other stuff. So, a lot of people are unaware of this, and the more that people share this information, the better off we all are.
Absolutely. Guys, send anyone you know to legalizecomedy.nyc. See what's happening, what we're doing. Look at the press release. Look at the lawsuit, what we're doing. Let your friends know. It matters. If we open up comedy, we can help heal New York City and New York State. We can start healing this city and getting it back up in action. You might say, Larry, do I really care that much about the city? What if I don't live in a city? Okay, it's still, if this city happens, it affects your city. What happens in New York City affects your city wherever you are. It does. I've told you this 1,000 times. You don't believe me. Then it happens. You go, wow, Larry was right. Yes, this is the largest city in our nation. What happens here flows to your city. You should care, particularly if you live in New York City. But if you don't, you should still care. Donnie, is there anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, just appreciate both of you for taking an interest in our plight and doing what you could do to help New York recover. That's really it. I think I wish politicians at the top would, be more on the ground and walking around, seeing what's going on in the city, and then I think they'll open up things faster.
I love that. Absolutely. James, anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I just wanted to thank you for taking time out and having this special show today. Really appreciate spreading the word, and thank you very much for having us on today.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much. Everyone else, thank you so much for watching. Please share this everywhere you can. Tell people, legalizecomedy.nyc. Let's begin to heal this city. Let's start to make the little guy have the same power the big guy has. Let's go back to fairness, and let's let New York get back to what it used to be. Guys, thank you so much for today. I appreciate all your time. I will see you all very soon.
Thank you for having us.